Well, global tensions, particularly the conflict involving Iran, have sharply increased 30-year mortgage rates, limiting buyer purchasing power. Here to tell us more is San Diego real estate broker Katy Sullivan. Katy, good morning. Great to see you again.
Good morning, Jason. Good to be here.
There are so many factors that can affect the real estate market.
Absolutely.
So let's start on a big scale, global scale, and we'll shrink it from there. What about this conflict with Iran? How could it be affecting us here?
You know, I will say that the global tension with Iran, it doesn't directly impact the housing market, but we're definitely experiencing that ripple effect. You know, anytime there's global tension, specifically with Iran, you see an increase in oil prices. And when there's an increase, comes an increase in inflation. And when there's an increase in inflation and that remains elevated, that can have an impact on mortgage rates. And that is what determines buyers' purchasing power and affordability. So not a direct impact, but you start to see those ripple effects of this tension.
So would you say that interest rates are the biggest factor right now in the San Diego market?
Absolutely. Interest rates are the main factor that determine whether or not a buyer can afford a property. It's higher, you know, for sure. But yeah, it definitely, interest rates are what drive buyers' affordability. It determines their monthly payment. So higher the interest rate, higher the monthly payment.
Right. So are we trending now toward a buyer's market at this point?
I think that we're seeing a shift. We're not necessarily seeing a shift to a buyer's market. We're seeing not a market crash, more of a market correction. So we're definitely seeing more negotiating power for buyers than we've seen in years past, but it by no means is that the pendulum swung in one direction. So we're definitely seeing a little bit more of a balanced market, which is a good thing for buyers because it gives them a little bit more negotiating power.
So what advice would you have for somebody who's in the market to buy right now?
I would say, look, interest rates and affordability, it's not lost on me, but for the first time in a long time, buyers have the ability to negotiate, whether that's purchase price, whether that's credits, whether that's actually buying a rate down. So while interest rates may be a little bit high, you can negotiate that interest rate with the seller in form of credits to bring that monthly payment down. As a buyer, look, my first place, it didn't check every box, but what it did do was it gave me the opportunity to put my foot in the door, build equity, so much so that I was able to purchase a home that did check a little bit more of the boxes. So for buyers, now's the time to lean in. Go speak with a lender, trusted lender, understand what your purchasing power is. Take that information and run with it. You know, the inventory's up, days on the market are up. You have the ability to be more thoughtful in your purchase.
Okay, that being said, what about sellers? Because this is a different market than it was a year ago.
It absolutely is a different market. And now more than ever, it is critical that sellers really, really price correctly. When you overprice a property, you will be punished quickly, and that property is going to sit. So it's not a buyer's market, it's not a seller's market, it's a strategy market. So pricing and presentation no longer are the days of listing your property whatever you want it for and getting multiple offers. You really have to be thoughtful with curb appeal, marketing, staging, photography, and pricing.
Okay, so let's talk about the condominium market.
Yes.
What is that looking like?
We're seeing a little bit more of a shift in the condominium market, and that's because buyers are being super thoughtful right now with their monthly payment. So they're taking things into consideration like HOA fees. What do those include? Insurance costs, their monthly fee, their monthly payment. So we're seeing condos sit a little bit longer just because buyers are being a little bit more thoughtful.
So is there any, right now as we sit here, is there any way to judge it's time to buy or it's time to sell? I
think it's a great time on both sides because as a buyer, we're, again, like I've said, we've had more negotiating power than we've seen in the past couple years. It's not an bidding war and competition like we've seen in the years past where there are lines outside the open house. And then for a seller, San Diego will always remain a desirable place to live, and that's because of limited long-term supply. So with all those fundamentals, it's never a bad time to buy, obviously, because you can see how you can build wealth through real estate over time. And it's not a bad time to sell and cash in because lots of sellers are sitting on a ton of equity. And again, San Diego is just one of the most desirable places to live. So it's a win-win.
All right. Katy Sullivan, good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Thanks for the insight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.